say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This session of the Lincoln County Commission on October the 18th, 2012 at 10 a.m. is now called to order. Members present: Merle Hughes Clerk, Charles McCann President, Charles Vance Commissioner, Michael Browning Commissioner. First thing on the agenda, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular session of the Lincoln County Commission meeting that was held on October the 4th, 2012 at 6 p.m.
Make it. Second.
Motion second, being all yes vote, motion carries.
Next thing on the agenda, under discussion of concern, we have Steve Rawlings with the West Virginia Risk Pool.
Welcome, Steve.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Steve, this is our new Commissioner, Michael Browning.
Good morning, Commissioner. How are you today?
Doing good.
I'd like to thank the Commissioner for taking a few minutes of your time today. I do have a small handout for you all that I'm going to kind of go over this morning, and then I'll also have something that I'm going to leave with you. To leave with the Commission, I'll just leave one copy of it. That's an actual copy of our presentation from the annual meeting that we had recently. But what I would like to do is highlight kind of the things that we have occurring within the pool, and let you ask any questions that you may have about the program as we go through. And certainly I'd be happy to expand on anything that might be of interest to you. First of all, just as a very brief refresher, you all are a part of the West Virginia County's Risk Pool, so you are an owner of the program that provides you with your property and casualty as well as workers' compensation coverages. So I'm here today to just kind of, again, give you a brief update to see if there are any things that you would like to raise concerns or questions about. Long story short, where we stand today, currently we have actually 39 county commissions that participate in the West Virginia County's Risk Pool. This map looks a little bit different from when I was here in the spring. We've added a few. We brought Raleigh County back on board. I actually kind of consider Raleigh County to be a success story. Raleigh County was the only member that we've ever had as part of the risk pool that's ever left the risk pool. And after being with their commercial provider, after leaving the pool for a very brief amount of time, they again went out to bid after less than a year as far as for the bid process, and then within 1 year they were back with the pool based upon the service, the coverages, as well as a price issue. So I really kind of consider that a success story, even more so than those that have never left. I kind of use that as a good example that
Strong statement, really.
we think it is. We think it's a good statement. Obviously, we didn't want them to leave at all, but in a way, it's something that kind of illustrates what we've discussed in the beginning when it comes to the service, the support, the costs, and the coverages, and how they play into the membership of the pool. In addition to that, when we started this fiscal year on 7/1, we actually had 38 county commissions, but Mercer County joined effective about 18 days ago. So effective actually 9/30 for that particular county, they've jumped on board. So we do continue to grow. The map does continue to get colored in by the membership there, and we certainly appreciate your participation, which again makes it occur and makes it continue. The supervisory board, one of the updates that we had, and just to give you very brief information, we had our annual meeting at the end of last month. At the annual meeting, we provided some updates to the membership about what occurred over the past year when it comes to the membership status, the support that we provided our members. And in addition to that, we always have an annual election for either 2 or 3 seats, depending upon the open status of the seats that are up for re-election. This year, both Willie Parker and Rodney Cox, Willie is from Upshur County, and Mr. Cox is from Roane County. Those individuals were up for re-election, and they were re-elected to the seats. So the board that I presented to you, as we discussed here early in the spring last year, about 8 or 9 months ago, remains the same. So the board remains the same. Those individuals were re-elected. From a membership annual contribution, side, when you look at that, you can see on that next slide there how we have continued to grow. You'll notice there's a pretty big increase between FY 2011 and FY 12. That really came in play with the workers' compensation. When we brought that in, that brought in a large infusion since the membership did grow at that point. And as you can also see, we are continuing to grow this year as well. We're going to collect a little over $8 million as it sits today. Not, that would be barring any other additional membership, hopefully throughout the year. So as it stands now, we're collecting about $8 million to pay for the claims, to pay for the reinsurance, to pay for the administration, the risk control, and so on. The next slide there, we can just kind of breeze past that. That just shows you how the membership has grown. It basically matches what we've done with the membership as far as for costs and contributions. And then the workers' compensation membership also, that actually should be for FY 2013, should be 38, because again, when Mercer County jumped on board, that took it to 38. There is one county commission that participates in the pool that does not participate in workers' compensation. The reason that is it's not because they've turned down the pool from a proposal. They've actually never received a proposal from us. They only meet once a month, and with us trying to get in, to get the information, to get them back, to make a decision, it just hadn't happened. I mean, the reality is it just hasn't happened to get them a proposal. So the workers' compensation does continue to go there. Very briefly, the next piece shows you your loss ratios. Lincoln County has, you're either really, really good, or you've got a couple of incidents that raise your loss ratio based upon the circumstances. So under that scenario, I mean, you've got the very first year you remember the pool, you didn't have any losses at all, no claims whatsoever. And then you had a jump based upon some things that are actually still in occurrence now, as well as one law enforcement liability piece, which is really what drives all of that, almost all of that cost was the law enforcement piece there. And then you had 3 really, really good years with the pool. And then this year, understand that percentage, I'm only basing that off of a percent of what you all have contributed to the pool of this year. So let's just use round numbers, and let's say it's $100,000 is what you contribute to the pool of the year. I'm only looking at about 30% of it because I'm looking at only what we've been through in this year, so I'm only looking at $30,000 versus all of your losses. So if you have no more losses, eventually that loss ratio will come down if we don't spend any more money on those particular losses, because obviously your contribution will increase percentage-wise, since I'm trying to give you the accurate portrayal of where it sits as of this point in time. So overall, the pool doesn't really see a pattern at this point in time. Usually, what we do is we try to focus on patterns. If we see certain things that get our attention, there's no overall pattern that drives your large losses at this point. It's going to be things that occur, kind of the catastrophic loss or the shock loss. So at this point in time, that's where we stand on those. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. And then the next slide there just talks about your workers' compensation losses. It's pretty easy to have a workers' compensation loss from the first year of that size, because your payroll restricts what you pay into the workers' compensation. So it only takes a knee injury, which you have. It only takes a knee injury for you all to have a pretty significant loss ratio under that. So underneath that, again, it's not really a pattern issue on that. It's going to be 1 or 2 shock losses there. This year you're doing great. You've only got about a 3% loss ratio. And again, that is prorated, so you're even doing better than that ultimately. So we're in good shape on that side of it. I had mentioned briefly that we had an annual meeting with our membership, and one of the slides, and actually one of the focuses that we did with multiple slides at our meeting, was to talk about what the overall 5-year loss history looks like for the pool. In other words, where are the losses coming from? Who's having those losses? Under what circumstances are they occurring? And I actually have an extra copy for that I'm going to leave with the commission. Don't need to go over with you all. I'd take all day long. You obviously don't have time for that, but I'll leave a copy of that with you here once we're finished. But this is one of the slides that shows you where our losses are coming from over each year by fiscal year. And what you see when you look at the blue line, which is the automobile, that's actually expected. We go from having a little less than 500 vehicles the very first year that we've covered to this year covering right around 2,000 vehicles. Well, with all the mileage that are driven in the vehicles and what those vehicles are used for, you're going to see that uptick. So when you look at the losses, those numbers of losses for the for the automobiles, that's to be expected. That is not out of line with where we expect it to be. So under that scenario, and then also the workers' compensation. To be honest with you, workers' compensation from what our actuarial studies showed, based upon the actuarial group, is a little bit high. But I think we may have talked about this in the spring as far as the hopeful return, we actually had a lot more participation in workers' compensation than what we thought we were ever going to have. I mean, we came in, we thought we'd have 21 and 24 counties do the workers' compensation program. We proposed to 34 of them, and 33 did it. So those numbers are going to go up, and those actually would technically now be in line with what our expectations are based upon the group that actually joined the pool. So under that scenario, it was about a 44% loss ratio across the board, and in pretty good shape. I've already really mentioned the annual meeting, so I won't necessarily go over this particular slide here. This just identifies some of the things we did talk about. Again, I'm going to give you and leave you with a copy of that presentation, so you all feel free to look at that at your own time. And obviously, I'd be happy to come back and answer any questions if you have concerns about that, as far as for that information that I'll leave behind with you. So that's on there. The ongoing membership issues, really not a lot has changed since the last time I was here. Just the fact that we are continuing to hold rates stable at this point in time. We've had a stability in costs. So when you joined the workers' compensation piece last year, you'll notice that your rates did not change at all for this year. Whereas when you look at what's happening in the commercial market, they're going up. I mean, the market is hardening. It's getting more difficult to find coverage. Coverage itself is becoming more expensive whenever it's being found. So from what we're able to do, we talk about the stability, we're able to accomplish that this year, and we're pleased to do that. I hope that we can continue that. We'll see what happens in the upcoming year. And then the last piece there is just going to be the contact information. It has not changed. Ken Justice still works all of your claims for the property and casualty. There is a slight change with workers' compensation. Initially, when we started workers' compensation, you all worked with Robin. Robin is no longer with our program. She had some family, some personal things, and unfortunately, she's no longer with us. We obviously didn't want that. She did not either. But long story short, Michael Paplamatis, who was actually her backup, he's been doing workers' compensation for about 25 years, but they worked territories, and he was her backup per se when she was his in certain areas. He has now taken over all the workers' compensation claims, so he would be your contact for claims of that sort. And then just for your documentation, your information, you'll notice that, and you'll note that the claims that you all have had for both property and casualty and workers' compensation are included on the last page. As I had mentioned before, overall, you really only have one claim that's open right now from a litigation standpoint. You do have a recent incident with the sheriff's vehicle out here on Route 119. We'll see what happens with that ultimately. We are certainly in the process of still gathering information, still making determinations, still getting interviews. That's an ongoing process. That won't be something that ends in a week or two. That's going to be ongoing until we get that completed. So that's kind of where we stand today. And then obviously you have your workers' compensation claims. But this is kind of what I wanted to mention when I looked at that 131% loss ratio. I mean, you only had $25,000 in value for your claims for workers' compensation last year. So when you look at it, doesn't take much to get to that loss ratio size. It's because of what the current payroll requires you all to pay into for workers' compensation that limits what you pay. So it's pretty easy to get that higher loss ratio under those circumstances. So underneath that, you're only looking at two claims that have any sort of significant value for that. Ultimately, that's what I wanted to do, is to just bring you this information, let you ask any questions if you have any, and certainly our goal is to work with you, making sure that we provide to you the program that we have indicated that we're going to continue to do so. And if you have any concerns, I'd like to be able to address them if possible. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions, Commissioner?
Thank you again. I will leave this with you all. Feel free to share it amongst each other. And again, I can come back and answer any questions if you have anything on the data that's included in here from the annual meeting.
Okay.